I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
A racist incident at Duluth Denfeld High School is opening up a broader community discussion on the issue of eliminating racism. We will address the issue with school district and community members.
A recent warm snap should make the start of the shipping season a bit smoother, with the Sulaks opening next Wednesday.
And it was a big week 25 years ago for the Duluth Air Guard base. Find out why in tonight's News File story.
These topics and more are coming up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Denny, it's good to be back after a couple of weeks off for the March membership drive here at WDSE.
And in those 2 weeks we were off the air, the weather changed. Wow, we don't have any snow.
Yeah, well, we always said with the membership drive that it begins in the winter, it ends in the spring, and here we are.
There you go, and I guess this is the first day of spring.
And we have an important show tonight, so let's get started.
Thank you very much, Julie. Well, a racist photo with a disturbing caption was circulated on social media at Duluth Denfeld High School earlier this month. Police and the school district moved quickly to identify the responsible students. But the incident has Duluthians asking what they can do to eliminate racism. The first of what may be a continuing series of meetings held this week address that issue, and we continue that conversation now. And so, joining us at this hour is Gregoire Rogier. He is co-chair of the Clayton Jackson McGhie Memorial Committee. Bill Gronseth is superintendent of Duluth Public Schools, and Annie Harala is vice chair of the Duluth School Board. Thank you all very much for being here. Let's start with you, Superintendent. Bill, you participated in last night's meeting. Was this a positive step toward working at eliminating racism in the schools?
You know, I think it was a great opportunity for a wide variety of people to come together and talk about this experience and what it meant emotionally and how it affected them, and ideas for how to move forward. And it was a great meeting, and I was glad so many people showed up.
I'd like to ask you, what was the biggest thing you took out of that meeting last night? What was accomplished?
Well, last night I was really there to listen and to learn and to really feel the experience that all of the people at the meeting felt. And so what I took away was some knowledge that this deeply affected the community in a very emotional and real way.
Mm-hmm. Roger, many were shocked to hear about the image that was posted on social media. Was it shocking to you, or?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's not a secret, and I think nationally we understand that racism is one of those great afflictions in American society. It's everywhere. Seldom does it appear in such a striking and extraordinary way, particularly in the background of Duluth, which in 1923 black men were lynched. So for a northern city of certain renown to have 15-year-old young men engage in that kind of activity was frightening. It said that whatever it was that happened in 1920, to some degree, is still alive and well. And like, well, in very frightening terms, it appeared in the minds of two innocent young men. As far as I know, and this is, I'm now trying to strike my memory to say that the young men knew each other, and there was no real historical animosity between them. But it was one of those instruments that young men do when they don't think carefully about what they're doing, that where they got that from is what we really need to talk about. Why is that that flavor existing in Duluth for all this time?
Rogier, you were on this program about a year and a half ago. We had a similar conversation. Have we not seen any change at all in Duluth behavior or with some people in the city?
I like to characterize racism as a kind of a virus. It really thrives in the darkness. The moment you show a sharp light on it, it disappears and it becomes weakened. So the less we talk about it, the less we kind of kick it under the rug or whatever metaphor you want to use, the more strength it has, and the more it, in a kind of insidious ways, influences even the youngest among us. And they think that that's an absolutely reasonable thing to do. And in many ways, it comes from us, the adults, who carries that hate hidden inside of us.
And Harala, a teachable moment, perhaps, for people in the school district, in the schools, and the broader community?
It is. Well, this was a really shocking incident. When I received the information in my email, I was stunned to silence for a while, and was glad to see that there was a response in our community. Last night I attended the meeting as well too. Sure. Glad to see community members coming around, but I'm seeing that this incident is something that happened in our schools is a reflection of what's happening in our broader community, and that this is a conversation we need to have within our schools with our students. We've had conversations. I know there have been conversations with students at grade level and school-wide, but it also is something we need the community to be a part of and continue working with. It's a lot we can learn.
Is there also a need, Annie, to train school staff on matters of racism? And if that's so, what has been done in the past? You know,
understanding racism, like Rogier said, I think for each person is both personal and communal. So when we look at our own journey and identifying as someone from the dominant culture, as a woman, I learn every day when I interact with people from other cultures how my culture would affect someone else. In the same way, we need to work with our teachers and our students and our staff so they can understand that and grow, but also work toward building culture. We do invest in teacher education, and our levy that was passed a year and a half ago did put some specific investments into talking about racism, but we can always do more because people always have another step to grow and to grow deeper. So,
Rogier, could you speak perhaps to the experience of families of color in the Duluth School District and in the broader community? Do you think that we're doing some good things that are making a difference?
Well, first of all, the community of color is not only broad, pardon me, not only broad but extraordinarily diverse. So it's hard to say, and I don't think that I have either the wisdom or insight to characterize that community. I can say that there is everything that you can imagine in the strength of that community, and in many ways the things that it suffers most dearly about. I'm always been afraid that when someone asks me that question, that I'd be tempted to say some things that in fact would exclude some significant portion of that community. So let me beg that answer by saying I, first of all, couldn't speak for that community. It has too large a voice and too broad a reach for a person my size to try to encompass.
Could you speak to your personal experience, though?
Well, I in some ways, decided to settle in Duluth because of encountering the Clayton Jackson McGhie Memorial. Because I thought, and I think rightly so, that any community that had the kind of moral strength and power of determination to memorialize, this is the memorial is really an intangible. It's not just the space itself, but what it makes us think about in terms of our own identity, who we are. And it made me think that this was a safe place to be.
Would all of you agree that we need to have more community discussion? And could you address that a little bit? Can you talk to that? Maybe all three of you a little bit. Bill?
I definitely think so. As Rogier was saying, racism is one of those things that when we do talk about it, when we have it out in the open, it's less likely to happen. And so in our upcoming Think Kids meetings, we've redesigned them in response to this event to include discussions about racism in our schools and about what we can do as a community, as a whole, to reduce racism in our schools and on the streets, in our whole community. So I think continuing to have these discussions is very important.
I would agree with Bill on that. When I think it's important that our parents are talking with their students. I have some good friends that had a conversation with their child and didn't even understand they were surprised at some of their child's reactions about race and about ethnicity within their home, and so they had some good family discussions. We need to be having those discussions in our home, at the water cooler, at work. We need to be talking about it in as many different ways as possible, because a lot of times people who really believe in it come together, but we need to be breaking beyond that and bringing more people into the discussion and holding people, inviting people into that discussion and learning process.
Rogier?
I think that in some ways, and I don't want this to be characterized as a smudge on the school system, but because I think that many of these schools themselves have a kind of historical inertia. None of us invented the schools. We're here to serve the schools as an institution which has its own power and authority, et cetera. But clearly, for the sort of things that you're talking about, we need to find room inside the policies and practices of the schools for that conversation to take place. When both the external pressures of academia, the state, the government impose values and demands upon us which don't allow us to have the children talk to each other, for example, or to leave room in the curriculum for extemporaneous events to take place, it disables our ability to really deal with racism in an honest way, particularly with the youngest children. So we need to have more room in what is now a really constricted set of events that I've been a tough critic of Bill Gronseth, and I've often had to then come back after my passion is cooled and apologize, because it's almost impossible to wring 2 minutes out of a whole year for something that's really important. I know that because I've been doing this for 40 years. So any values that's the direction I hope we would go, that we would have more room to inoculate our children against the voices of deception and pain that reside in racism.
And I think that you'll be happy to hear that we've started discussions to add significant amounts of time to the elementary curriculum and schedule to address the issue of social justice, of character building, and helping us all to learn the skills that we need to get along better.
Yes. In many ways, I watch that because I have a grandson who's at Piedmont. And so I see a lot of this, and I talk to the principal there about things. And so, although I don't know in exquisite detail what you're doing, I'm heartened by the fact that you are doing that. And it should go, we need to start that early, and we need to do it, it's really teacher training, because teachers have a tradition of getting to the details of the discipline that they're in front of, not about the interrelationship that human beings need to develop with one another.
So racism is a learned experience? We're getting that from someplace, from someone?
Oh yes, it's an imposed social construct. It has nothing to do with biology. Racism is something that was imposed.
We keep handing it on, if you will.
Well, it's an adjunct to slavery. I mean, racism was started because that was a way of containing illegitimately the labor of human beings in slavery. Although there was initially a way of moving more money up to the top 1%, it has now come to poison. This is not just about white against black or black against white. This is about poisoning the entire society, to leaving us vulnerable to things which we should not be vulnerable to. We should not be terrorized by things like this. What we should do is feel strong in our love for one another. Those are the sort of things that should come out of the school. Not getting a good job, although that's important. It's equally and even more important for us to understand how we live with one another as a community.
Annie, where do you see this going from here? We only have about 30 more seconds.
Yeah, well, you know, one of the pieces that I was reminded of last night from attending that conversation and to continue to move forward with is to meet and get to know people around us, to learn the stories of people that are with us. And also as community members, as a white community member in Duluth, it would be very easy to just spend time in communities that are just white. I think it's important that we start getting to know people, getting involved in organizations, but also meeting people around you and being willing to learn their stories. And there's much more than that, but just knowing people as people that we is kind of one of the first steps.
Right. Annie, Bill, Rogier, thank you so very much. Wonderful discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Very
Thank
nice
you very
job.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Bill?
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
Duluth's first F-16 arrived this morning under blue skies, escorted by a sister jet from Oregon. Onlookers lined the gate at the Air National Guard base, watching as the two taxied in. Colonel Raymond Klasowski, commander of the 148th Fighter Interceptor Group, piloted the F-16 in, receiving a hearty congratulations as he emerged. Today's arrival marks the beginning of a whole new era here at the Duluth Air National Guard Base. By mid-July, its entire fleet of F-4s will be replaced by the F-16.
It's a great feeling always to bring a new airplane in, especially this one. Everybody's been anticipating its arrival. We've been preparing for the conversion for up to a year now, and we're sending pilots away to school at the present time, and this is a signal that the conversion is reality.
Klasowski says the conversion will ensure the Duluth base's future for at least the next 10 to 15 years. Good news for the Guard at a time when worldwide tensions are easing and many military bases across the country are closing. Meanwhile, Duluth's F-4 fleet will officially serve the base until July 1st. The last one is scheduled to fly out in late July, and all 20 F-16s should be in place by the end of the year. With photographer Bob Hampton, Julie Zenner, KDLH News.
By the calendar, today is the first day of spring, but Monday, an even more promising sign that spring has arrived in the region, will be the departure of the first ships of the season from the Duluth-Superior Harbor. 2 ships are scheduled to leave the port on Monday, the John G. Munson with a load of iron ore and the Mesabi Minor laden with coal. The ships should find relatively smooth sailing until they reach the eastern end of Lake Superior, where the ice pack is heavy. Well, joining us with an update on the start of the shipping season is Adele Yorde, PR Manager for the Duluth Seaway Port Authority. And welcome, Adele.
Thank you.
Always good to see you.
Good to see you.
Just a few weeks ago, it seemed like perhaps the ice was going to be a problem, and now we look out, and has the warm snap kind of fixed things for us?
Fixed it from about Whitefish Point west.
So east of here, still a lot of ice?
East of here, they're not looking at blue water. They're
Oh.
still looking at ice pack about 3 feet thick, Whitefish Point over to the Sulaks.
So what's the outlook as we head into the season?
You know, I think everybody's got an optimistic outlook for this season, at least breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief. We're not going to be into April before we're actually moving cargo. And so I think in that regard, we're looking for, you know, a nice increase of maybe 2% if we're looking ahead for the whole season.
Are we coming off a pretty good year? Was 2014 decent for the port?
It was an amazingly strong end to a season, considering that we lost almost 5 weeks of moving cargo in March and April because of the ice, and we had even had issues in January then at the end of the year. So considering all of that, we had iron ore came on strong, and if we had any benefit to the ice of last year, we had higher lake levels, which allowed all of those freighters to load deeper. So that was a big help.
Are you concerned at all that the steel slowdown could impact the ore shipments in this season?
You know, we're kind of cautiously watching what's going on with that. There's not been a slowdown that we've seen in steel making and in manufacturing. It's just that there's a glut in the global market of iron ore. So we're watching to see how that impacts our local shipments.
Adele, is there still a significant shippage of coal through the local ports?
There is. What's been lost in coal shipments has to do with the Canadian provinces really stepping back from coal as a power for their power plants and going back toward hydro, some nuclear. And so the 6 or 7 million tons that have come off the top in the last few years are really all because of those lost shipments to Canada. Otherwise, the coal shipments across the rest of the Great Lakes are just as strong as they've always been.
One of in fact, the second ship that's scheduled to leave the local harbor is laden with coal, is it not?
It is, and it'll make a couple of round trips up to Taconite Harbor for the power plant there, and then its third shipment will actually go to the lower lakes.
Talk a little bit about what's going on at the port as you ramp up for the start of the new season. Is there a backlog of cargo just waiting for the vessels to come in? Or?
Well, anybody that drives down I-35 and heads to the cities will always look across at this time of year and see huge mountains of iron ore pellets at the CN dock on the Duluth side. They're not quite as visible with the BNSF railway docks because they're a little bit hidden from view, but those stockpiles are very large. And if you look across to the Superior Midwest Energy Terminal, those coal piles are all stocked and ready to ship out. So the inventory is large at this end, and now they'll resupply their customers on the lower lakes. And when I say lower lakes, you know, the south end of Lake Michigan and then into Huron and Lake Erie. The Lakers that everybody sees plying the lakes most often up here can't get through the Welland Canal on the Seaway end, and so they spend their life really ferrying cargo on 4 of the 5 Great Lakes.
Any new cargoes that are kind of starting to emerge in this market that we should be keeping an eye on?
We're kind of watching what's going to happen. We have some arrangement now with a sailing company out of Antwerp, at least on our Clear Public Marine Terminal, where we handle general cargo, project cargo, equipment and machinery, heavy lift kinds of things. And we're hoping to see they're going to offer the comparable to if you have less than truckload movements on the roadways, it'll be less than full shiploads, and so they can consolidate freight for maybe some smaller lot shippers. And we're hoping that that really picks up some new commodities here from the Midwest and then coming across as imports as well.
Adele, what kind of economic impact do the local ports have on Duluth-Superior?
Well, if you look at both direct and indirect and induced jobs that come from shipping cargo through the port, there's about 11,500 jobs that are related to that, about $500 million in wages, $1.5 billion in terms of economic revenues for the state. That's all based on a study that was done about 2011 across the Great Lakes. And then if you look at the US and Canadian employment figures, there's 250,000 people involved in the shipping industry from here to through the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Wow.
So it's quite a regional impact.
You mentioned the Clear Public Marine Terminal, and you've got some construction going on down there starting this spring.
We do.
Talk about that.
We do. We have an adjacent dock, so right across the slip from the port terminal, has a nondescript name yet. Hopefully at some point we'll rename it, but it's Dock C&D.
It's sexy.
It's a really, sexy cell. But it was where an old grain terminal stood for a long time. We tore it down years ago, but we really needed to do something to shore it up so we could restore it to its maritime use. So we were very fortunate to get a Tiger grant for redevelopment of that dock from the federal government, the Maritime Administration, $10 million. We got a brownfield redevelopment grant from the Minnesota Deed Office, and we're coupling that with some monies from the state Department of Transportation and our own monies for about a $17.3 million rehab of that dock, so it too can start doing some heavy lift and project cargo handling.
Do you think ice conditions down Lake Adele will allow the port or the lake shipping to begin? I think it's on the 25th of...
Right, the Munson is scheduled to leave on Monday, and it's headed to Gary, Indiana. So what will likely happen is the Alder will be working in tandem with the Mackinac, the big red heavy hitter, and that Mackinac will be laying down tracks between Whitefish Point and between the Sioux, and then Alder will kind of escort the Munson through and then pick up the upbounders that are below the Sioux right now. There will be about 4 ships there, 4 Lakers waiting to come this way to load cargo.
A fast winter.
It was a fast winter, and we said first day of spring, but last in. Munson was last in on the 20th of January, so here we are, first out, 2 months later. It really went quickly.
It did.
All right, and our time went quickly as well, so we're out of it.
Thanks,
But thanks
Adele.
again so much. Good luck with the season.
Thank you.
The stories from Business North. Bill McGhie was appointed president of the Northeast Higher Education District, which includes the Hibbing, Itasca, Mesabi Range, Rainy River, and Vermilion Community Colleges. He will succeed Sue Collins, who will retire this summer. McGhie has been Vice President of Finance and Administration at Bemidji State University at Northwest Technical College. Before that, he served the Northeast Higher Education District as Chief Financial and Facilities Officer. McGhie said his goal is to improve the system's alignment with regional businesses and industries.
The Bank of Nova Scotia has filed a lawsuit in U.S. District Court against Cliffs Natural Resources, alleging the company breached its loan obligations. The bank is seeking an award of more than $52 million, plus unpaid interest and expenses. At issue are equipment loans issued to Cliffs Bloom Lake Group in eastern Canada. Cliffs has shut down the high-cost operations and in January announced the Bloom Lake division had begun bankruptcy proceedings in Montreal. The bank said Cliffs had guaranteed the loans with company assets, which Cliffs denies.
Entrepreneurs who need a small office will have a new option available next month in Duluth. Regis Company is set to open small furnished spaces for short or long-term occupancy. The firm is constructing 58 offices on the 4th floor of Wells Fargo Center. Those offices will join 2,000 other Regis sites in 750 cities. Regis also offers a business lounge and access to meeting rooms having video conferencing capabilities. It also caters to traveling business people who can stop by local Regis locations to work or hold meetings between flights. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
It's time to wrap up this week's show, so call now if you have a comment. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send an email to Almanac North at wdse.org. You can also visit the WDSE website for news and information about the station and updates on our broadcasting schedule. And Denny, the beginning of March was nice and mild. It appears it may be going out on the colder side.
Well, we're only now beginning spring. You know, spring in the Northland, we could still get white stuff.
Yeah, but the old in like a lamb, out like a lion this year, I think.
Who knows? Keep the snow shovel in.
For Denny and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next time.